Alright, how's it going everyone? This is the week 17 update of building our Ryan home St. Lawrence. We've come a long way in a pretty short amount of time here, and while we are very close to the end, we are still not quite there yet. So I think you're going to see in some different parts of this video, so let's get into it. Now maybe for the first time on the channel, I can probably say at this point, I did not really notice any major exterior changes on the home when we did go out and visit. This video footage was taken on Thursday, March 20th. However, I did notice a bit of repair work on and around the garage door areas, so if you watched our week 16 update video, which you haven't yet, I'll leave a link to above and in the description below that you can check out, you'll know that we requested some patching and cleanup of this stone water table area, and that included filling in some gaps in concrete that we noticed around where the garage door bays are. So you'll see here at this point, they filled in some of those gaps in the concrete that were exposed in the garage foundation area between where the asphalt and the stone water table starts. And that prep work is of course important for them to be able to add another additional layer of stone or two to be able to fill that area in and have it look a bit cleaner. Now beyond this, as far as community progress updates go overall, I did use this visit as an opportunity just to take a pass with my drone here along many of the homes just to check on their progress, and I'd say even more so than just out of curiosity. It really doesn't hurt to have some additional, whether it's photos or videos of other homes being built in your community or other homes of your same model if you're able to see them in your community, or maybe visit another adjacent community to just take a look at them. Ariel and I did this with a couple of communities, and I think it's these additional visits and seeing other homes that are like yours that are going to help maybe frame things as you get into those final stages and kind of learning what are acceptable tolerances for things, what are ways these homes are typically built or not built, and what might be standard and what you should expect on yours, and what might be a slight deviation from the norm and something you can ask about and get fixed. And I say all of that because with this particular visit, I did not really film, as far as that goes, much on the inside. In fact, I spent the majority of my visit, maybe a good hour or so, and Ariel did join me here a bit later, taking a look through many of the different areas of the home to essentially identify what I could find as far as any physical or cosmetic defects go. Now again, I've mentioned in other videos, and this includes the week 15 mark as well, that you do have, of course, blue tape crews. Ryan has a number of their own people going through the home and truthfully marking up dozens upon dozens of these areas to fix and correct. And overall, it is really best to let them do their job because really they're going to be able to find and spot a lot of these areas and fix them themselves. However, at the end of the day, I think we're only human, and in this case, of course, there will be items that get missed, not just by the blue tape crews, but even your PM, depending on how many homes and different things they have going on. Now, we will have a final inspection, and I will say I've gone through the home and done some super basic tests of, running the taps, flushing toilets, seeing that the HVAC is generally running. I've done a little bit of this, but I'm really trusting, of course, our inspector to do those deeper mechanical, plumbing, structural checks on things, because that is really what will be his area of expertise overall. In my case, as far as any physical defects go, I figured this was an opportunity to get those headed off and taken care of, because yes, even though these homes and really most major national builders will give you a 1-year warranty on fixing these items, why not get them taken care of now? Sure, many of these would be caught probably by the home inspector, but again, these things can be headed off a week or two in advance. I think that's all the better in terms of getting your house in a more ready to go shape for when you actually close on it. So I think the best way to show you what we found and how we identified these and set those along is to really take you to my phone here and just walk through all of the different items that we found and pass along to our PM. Yes, there were 27, technically a 28th too, but a lot of these in total, and to his credit, took all of them, went through them item by item, and mentioned that he would be looking into all of these. So without further ado, let's get into what we found and what we were looking to correct here at the week 17 mark. So the first thing we noticed was that the front door, which was just painted in the sun-dried tomato color at the week 16 mark, did have a few areas where paint looked to have been missed, or perhaps they filled in and did some trim work, patching and paint with white that might have run over onto the door. So you can see a couple areas there along the side and along the top of the door that could use a bit of touching up. Now, the second area we did find was near the stairs and the wall area near there. So there had been sort of an open gap or kind of a missed drywall patched area we had noticed towards where the top long stringer of stairs meets the wall going up to the second floor. That was an area that looked to still need a little bit of TLC. I did notice a couple of gaps where the bottom set of stairs met the landing area. Either some areas I could just use some caulking or a bit of cleaning up, so that was something else we noticed there. Now for the third item, one of the things we did notice was that the pantry closet shelving, and only seemed to be the pantry in this case, looked to have been some misaligned brackets in terms of the install that were not quite level. So as you're going to see here in this video, popping in one of the shelves on one side would cause it to pop out of the other. Wasn't the case with all levels, but the third from the top and the top one looked to have this issue. Now the fourth one was around the cabinets, and specifically our modern handle door pulls. So for whatever reason, all of the main cabinets seemed to have handles that were in good shape, and actually most of the drawers that had the handles, even in the other bathrooms and other areas of the home, they seemed fine as well. However, for whatever reason, a number of these handles ended up getting scratched and dented here in the kitchen. Not sure why that exactly was the case, but we saw what looked to be some areas where the finish had chipped off and the metal underneath was exposed, so wanting to make sure that these areas get either replaced if the handles themselves were damaged, or could get them cleaned up if maybe they were just not below the surface scratches and something that could be cleaned off a little more easily. Now, in a similar drywall patching vein, we did notice this area near where the right side set of cabinets, which includes the refrigerator, microwave, where this meets the wall of the dining or breakfast area, looks to have been a little missed or sloppy part of drywall patching there that could definitely use a bit of a touch-up. Number 6, in this case, was a warped floor vent. I did mention this one before, but figured I would bring it up again since it didn't look to have been replaced yet. Now with number 7 here, again, I noted in our text to our PM that I'm not a real stickler for wall plumbness here. There are a lot of different reports on tolerances. I've heard anywhere from a wall cannot be more than 3/8 of an inch out for every 32 inches of measurement. I've also heard a 1/4 inch for every 10 feet if you're using something like gypsum board, and depending on what the wall material is made out of, could constitute a different tolerance. Long story short, most of the walls in the home seem good, but this particular end wall here that separates the family room from the right side hallway and study area, just by looking at it and checking the floor, which, yes, the floor is actually straight, you can tell this wall in this end section is not. So definitely wanted to mention that and bring that up and see if there's a way they could somehow bring it in line and make it look a little more plumb and even. Number 8 was a pretty easy one. Of course, something anyone could probably do themselves with a little bit of a wall patch kit, but looks to be a missed patch for a screw hole where one of the closet shelves in the owner's bedroom was adjusted. Now for number 9, we noticed a bit of a sloppy patchwork here in terms of where the different sections of the ceiling meets, going down into the basement level above the stairs. One of those areas you wouldn't typically see unless you're looking for it, but I did notice it and did figure it was worth calling out. Now number 10, and truthfully, I noticed there were a bunch of these throughout the home that the Blue Tape folks did take care of, and that is nail pops specifically. However, they did look to have missed one area in the hallway near the garage door as far as the interior access to the garage goes. Certainly wouldn't be surprised to find more nail pops over time as the house goes on before that 1-year warranty is up, but any you can catch now and clean up, worth doing. Now, the 11th item I found was some notched out trim work on the right side of the basement bedroom door. So area where it looks to have been cut a little bit short and something that could either perhaps be filled in or that section of trim could be swapped out, cleaned up a little more. Number 12, a pretty easy one to take care of here if you have a bucket of City Loft paint nearby, but just a little scratch here in the main first floor hallway area. Now for number 13, we did notice a particular floorboard that had some scratches in it. Not sure if this was intentionally or unintentionally marked. This was in the family room, maybe a few feet from the hallway area and a few feet from that sidewall. I noted that was a little out of plumb. For number 14 here, in the corner rear window of the owner's bedroom, we did notice sort of a weird film or layer on one of the window panes, the bottom one in this case. Not sure what this is or was. We did check a bunch of the other windows and they seem to be fine. So it wouldn't be a big deal probably to swap this out if needed or just clean it up. And for number 15, we noticed some holes and missed patch spots in the rear wall of the laundry room area. Small things. These were towards the bottom of the wall near the baseboard, so maybe something that wasn't easily caught. Again, the laundry room is in a large area of attention, but did notice it, and we wanted to call it out. Number 16, we noticed a little bit of sloppy trim work around the, what we'll call the bottom right corner of the attic access panel in what is technically the third bedroom area. Now for number 17, we noticed some missed paint areas and scuffs in the second floor loft area. Small areas in the grand scheme of things, but when you took a closer look, they became a bit more obvious. In particular, that upper scuffed or maybe mist brushed or overbrushed area towards the upper end of the wall. And for number 18, and yes, I realize we're kind of hopping around room to room, we took a few passes through things, and I took sort of an extra one once Ariel got there just to double check things. We noticed a bit of a slightly sloppy paint job and sort of maybe cleanup of excess paint on one of the recessed lights in the ceiling there. They could use a bit of touch-up. Now for number 19, and I would say you're going to see a lot of these throughout the house that, for the most part, the blue tape crew folks will take care of, but in this case, we noticed some sloppy drywall and patchwork around the one light switch area in the bottom sort of right angle corner of the basement. And again, I think you're going to find a lot of these areas where maybe the trim and drywall around outlets and switches, and or perhaps on these switches and switch plates themselves, you might see some excess paint. These are kind of common areas, I would say, that end up getting a little bit of damage and may need some touch up. A lot of these will get cleaned up. I think a lot of them in the home were and had been over time. This is one that apparently had not. Now for number 20, this one stood out to me a bit. You'll see what I would call some pretty sloppy caulking work here in the slate surround for the fireplace on at least some of the side left and right pieces. And you will notice that left side looks to have a little bit of a scuff or damage. Might be able to be easily kind of buffed out, but that was also visible there as well. Now for 21, we did notice some potential scratches and areas of the glass that looked damaged on the fireplace. Nothing major, but some areas that looks like they should use a second look. Maybe they can be corrected, or perhaps maybe that piece of glass needs to be replaced. Now for 22, yet again, we found another small chip or a series of chips in the cabinets, this case on the left side, so the side of cabinets behind the island, the uppers there on the very left end. Now we also did notice in the basement area under the stairs, as far as that goes, there were a couple of missing insulation bats. Mostly just making sure that, if this was spare, that was placed there because they had it, then sure, that's fine. But of course, if that was supposed to be there, it wasn't, and making sure that that got filled in. Now again, as sort of a follow-up to some of the items I mentioned with that larger gap in the trim piece from the previous week, mostly wanted to confirm that those door jambs, baseboards, any of the toe kick, that there'd be a little bit of caulking or something done there to fill some of those gaps, whether between the door jambs and, say, the engineered hardwood floor, or different trim pieces and tiles, so on and so forth. For number 25, we did notice the fact that there looked to be a little ring, maybe of stain or paint or something that made its way onto the second tread from the top of the stairs, right around near the second floor. Now for number 26, we noticed a little bit of a sloppy job in the concrete area of the front stairs. Again, kind of where the top stair meets the full front porch. It's a small thing, but something we did notice and looked to be an area that was missed, so we wanted to make sure that got taken care of. And also that any grass or future landscaping would cover up some of those other concrete areas along the front porch, and where that foundation meets the seed or eventually the sod for the grass. And for number 27, we wanted to mention the fact that, we did notice a few dirty areas of the home on the exterior side. Certainly this egress window well did stand out, but there were a couple of other areas, such as the roof for the front porch, that looked to have needed a little bit of a cleaning or could use one. And so while that was the end of the long list, I did find one other thing that was worth mentioning. So you might remember from around the week 11 mark, which if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll leave a link to above and in the description below that you can check out, that the gutter crews at the time looked to have made a mistake as far as the main gutter run along the second floor of the exterior of the home. And I had wondered about that side gutter run along the larger garage bay, if that was where it should be. Now again, our home is really one of the first ones built in the community other than the model, so this was tough to know in time. However, one of the advantages of just tracking the community progress, and again, seeing other reference homes, is that you get a good sense for maybe what is expected or not as far as that goes. So when we started looking at some of the other homes getting completed, and in this case, these were a couple Powell models, we noticed they were tucked in a little bit better along the side there, compared to ours, which maybe they added the opening a little bit short and just kind of dealt with it. And of course, I had found some other reference St. Lawrence's where they had done and wrapped this up a little more nicely. So we had a bit of a back and forth conversation with our PM just to talk about this. And, he first mentioned the fact that all the gutter runs, as far as the plan goes, were along the front. However, through the use of some good photos and reference points, and yes, that includes our own home and some good shots there, and And that includes some of the other homes in the community. That includes some other St. Lawrence builds. We were able to sort of discuss what we noticed and what looked a bit off compared to some of the other St. Lawrences and homes that have been built and how this could be cleaned up. And he mentioned that he was going to talk to that gutter crew to get that gutter moved a little bit to the right and tucked in along the side there, so it looked very much like the other homes and in the other ways that the St. Lawrences and some of other Ryan's models have been built. I think it's really important when you're building a new house that you leave no stone unturned. You ask questions, you get answers to things you're curious about, and you do a bit of your own homework there as well, right? So you can always ask questions, but it's good to, have receipts, as they say. And ultimately, make sure that you and your PM are doing the best they can to get what you paid for. So that is the week 17 update on our Ryan Home St. Lawrence. Hopefully this video has been of some help to you. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if it has. Next week, we will be at the week 18 mark and getting into our final inspection with our independent inspector and our final walkthrough with our PM. Stay tuned for that update and more to come. For now, that is all I have to say. So thanks for watching.